What's the point of building a company if you don't even know what it's like to work inside it anymore? Landon Hale stood at the edge of his office window, staring down at the city, the distant sounds of traffic muffled by thick glass. He'd inherited the logistics company from his father 5 years ago. 18 warehouses across the Midwest, booming numbers. But lately, something felt off. Complaints had been trickling in orders arriving late. Broken items, missing boxes. His managers sent reports all clean. But he didn't believe it. Something wasn't adding up. He tossed the latest customer complaint on his desk. A mother had waited 2 weeks for a birthday gift for her son. It came in shattered. The warehouse in Joliet was responsible. Landon had never been to that one. He realized he hadn't met most of the warehouse teams himself. He made the decision that afternoon. He called his assistant. "I want to work at the Joliet warehouse. I want to see it. No cameras, no announcement. Make it look like I'm a new hire." She hesitated. "They won't recognize you, but are you sure?" He nodded. "I haven't met any of them. They've probably only seen my name on paperwork, not my face. Set it up." 2 days later, Landon stepped off a bus 2 blocks from the warehouse. His thick beard, clear lens glasses, and baseball cap made him look 10 years older. The worn jeans and faded hoodie helped too. He had a fake name on the paperwork, Trent Lawson. His resume said he'd done some warehouse work down in Georgia. The warehouse sat between a rail yard and a strip mall. Gray walls, noisy dock doors. Forklifts whining through open bays. Inside, the air smelled like cardboard and diesel. A woman at the front desk handed him a clipboard. "You're the trainee?" He nodded. "Yeah, Trent." She pointed toward a tall man in a blue vest. "That's Supervisor Kenny. He'll walk you through." Kenny didn't even glance at him. "Follow me." Landon kept quiet as they stepped into the main floor. It was chaos. Boxes piled too high, pallets left in walkways, 2 workers arguing over scan guns. Kenny barked across the floor. "Zach, you got time to babysit a trainee?" A young man in his early 20s looked up. Dark curly hair, sleeves rolled up, moving fast despite his limp. "Yeah, sure," Kenny scoffed. "Great. Maybe you'll finally be useful." Zach flinched but didn't say anything. He motioned Landon over. "Come on, man. I'll show you inbound." As they moved between shelves, Landon noticed Zach limped slightly on his left leg. Still, he moved quicker than most. He had a way of stacking, scanning, and tagging that was methodical. Efficient. "You've been here long?" Landon asked. 2 years. Started as part-timer. Got bumped to full last fall. Still waiting on them to consider me for floor lead, though. "You want that?" Zach nodded. "Yeah, but Kenny says I'm not leadership material." A crash echoed across the warehouse. 2 boxes had fallen. Kenny's voice cut through the air. "Zach, what the hell did I say about stacking over shoulder height? That wasn't me. Did I ask for your life story?" Zach's jaw clenched. Landon watched it all. Kenny turned to him. "And you, new guy, don't get too comfortable. We don't need dead weight around here." Landon said nothing, but his gut tightened. He followed Zach back to the loading area. "Is it always like this?" Landon asked under his breath. Zach forced a smile. "You get used to it." By lunch, Landon had seen enough. The workers were overworked and understaffed. Turns out 2 employees had quit last month. Management hadn't replaced them. Kenny just doubled shifts and threatened to cut hours if people complained. Still, Zach helped a new girl lift a heavy box without being asked. He stayed behind to restore a shelf someone else had messed up. He didn't say a word when Kenny berated him again for something he didn't do. Near the end of the shift, Landon was helping Zach unload a new shipment when Kenny walked by and muttered, loud enough for them both to hear, "Maybe if your brain worked as fast as your limp, you wouldn't be such a freaking burden." Zach froze. His hands trembled slightly. He didn't look up. Landon's stomach turned. That was it. He couldn't stay quiet anymore. But not yet. He needed the rest of the day. One more shift. See who else was watching, who else was suffering in silence. He spent the rest of the afternoon with Zach. Asked questions. Took notes mentally, of course. Watched how the others responded around Kenny. Some avoided him. Some laughed along. By the time the sun dipped below the warehouse roof, Landon knew exactly what kind of man Kenny was and what kind of worker Zach had become, in spite of it. He walked out of the building that night without saying a word, but the next morning he'd be back, and this time he wouldn't be Trent Lawson. Landon returned the next morning wearing the same hoodie and cap, but the weight on his shoulders felt different. He had seen enough on day one to know this wasn't a one-time lapse in leadership, it was a pattern, a dangerous one. Today he wasn't just observing, he was confirming. Zach was already on the floor when Landon arrived, hauling a pallet jack loaded with sealed cartons. His limp was more noticeable today. Still, he moved with precision, avoiding floor debris and stacked bins without breaking stride. He nodded in recognition when he saw Landon. "Didn't think you'd show up again," he said, wiping his palms with a rag. "Most first-timers don't." "I wanted to learn the ropes," Landon replied, "and I didn't hate yesterday." Zach gave a dry laugh. "Give it time." Before they could say more, a sharp whistle cut through the warehouse. Kenny stood near the receiving bay, clipboard in hand, yelling for everyone to gather. The crew shuffled over, a few rubbing sleep from their eyes. "Truck's late, again," Kenny barked, "which means we're doing inventory until it shows. I don't care what's on your sheet. You're all on aisle 6 until I say otherwise. And if I see anyone standing still, I'll make sure you're standing outside the gate." Someone in the back muttered something under their breath. Kenny turned. "What was that, Marcus?" A stocky man in a red beanie raised his hands. "Just said we cleared that section yesterday." "Then do it again. Maybe you'll get it right this time." No one responded, they just moved. Landon followed Zach down the aisle. With each passing row, he noticed more signs of neglect. Broken scanners left in crates, safety signs curling off the walls, a fire extinguisher hanging loose from its mount. Zach kept his voice low. "We're supposed to rotate sections every other day, but if Kenny's in a mood, he'll make us redo the same one just to waste time." Landon nodded once. "What about Marcus? He always gets singled out like that?" Zach hesitated. "He gets it worse. Kenny says it's because he's slow. But honestly, I think he just doesn't like that Marcus talks back." In aisle 6, they started counting barcodes and checking dates against a printed manifest. The work required focus, but Landon kept glancing toward the others. One woman was working with a wrist brace, scanning with her left hand. Another man had earbuds tucked under his hoodie strings, clearly trying to stay in rhythm without attracting attention. A sudden clatter drew their eyes to the next row. A box had tipped off a high shelf and landed inches from Marcus's feet. He jumped back, startled. Kenny appeared almost instantly. "You blind now? That bin was flagged for top shelf storage. You think that's a suggestion?" Marcus looked up, his voice barely controlled. "It wasn't me who put it there." Kenny stepped closer, his voice colder. "I didn't ask who did. I said get it cleaned up." Landon stepped forward. "He's right. I saw it. It was already up there when we passed by." Kenny turned sharply. "Are you correcting me, new guy?" Landon didn't blink. "I'm just saying he didn't do it." Kenny's eyes narrowed. "You want to take his place on dock sweep?" "I'll do what's needed," Landon said, keeping his tone even. Kenny stared for a beat, then turned away. "Then both of you can sweep. Now." Zach gave Landon a look that said, "You didn't have to do that." They grabbed brooms and headed toward the dock. As they swept, Zach leaned in. "You've got guts. Most people just keep their heads down." "I don't do well with bullies." Zach didn't respond at first, just kept sweeping. Then, quietly, he said, "He used to be worse. Before the last safety audit, he'd throw clipboards when he got mad. We had a girl quit mid-shift because he screamed at her in front of everyone. HR came once. Didn't change anything." Landon's jaw tightened. "What about upper management?" "We don't see them. Closest we got was a video call last year. Some VP said they'd be doing engagement surveys. Never heard back." They finished the dock and returned to the floor. The late truck finally arrived just before lunch, and the crew jumped into action. The pace picked up. Still, Kenny didn't lift a finger. He stood near the loading bay, sipping coffee, occasionally shouting at someone to go faster. Landon noticed one of the newer workers, a young woman with a short ponytail and nervous energy, struggling to maneuver a heavy box onto a roller table. She stumbled as the box tilted. Kenny yelled, "You dropped that and it's coming out of your check!" She froze, clearly panicked. Landon stepped in, grabbed the bottom of the box, and helped guide it into position. "Thanks," she muttered, eyes wide. Landon turned to Kenny. She needs gloves. That box didn't have any grip. And I need a workforce that can follow basic instructions, Kenny snapped. We're not running a daycare. Landon's voice dropped. This isn't about daycare. It's about safety. Kenny stepped forward, chest puffed. You want to tell me how to run my floor? Before Landon could speak, Zach's voice cut in. He's not wrong. That box was labeled as Team Lift. It shouldn't have been on that skid alone. Kenny's face flushed. You're on thin ice already. You want to make it worse? Landon had seen enough. He stepped back, pulled his phone from his pocket, and dialed a number. Kenny scoffed. What, calling your mommy? The call connected. Melanie, it's Landon Hale. I need security sent to Joliet warehouse immediately. Kenny Deems is to be escorted off-site. He's terminated. Effective now. Silence fell over the entire floor. Kenny blinked. What the hell did you just say? Landon removed his cap and glasses. I'm not Trent. I'm Landon Hale. I own this company, and I've seen enough. Kenny took a step back, mouth slightly open. This is a joke. No, and if you say one more word to anyone here, you'll be dealing with legal, not just HR. Security arrived within minutes. Kenny tried to posture, but the silence of the warehouse made it clear no one was on his side. He was escorted out, jacket slung over one shoulder, still muttering. The moment he was gone, attention lifted from the room. No one celebrated. They just stood a little straighter. Breathing felt easier. Landon turned to Zach. You okay? Zach nodded slowly. I didn't think anyone upstairs even knew we existed. You do now. And that's going to change. He looked around at the workers, all watching him. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about what needs fixing together. No more silence. And for the first time since the morning began, someone smiled. Landon arrived early the next morning, this time through the front entrance. No disguise, no borrowed name. He wore a plain button-up, sleeves rolled to the elbow, and a badge clipped to his belt with his real name and title. The front desk clerk looked up, startled, and stood as he approached. I'm here to meet the team, he said simply. No emails, no announcements, just let them know I'll be out on the floor. She nodded quickly and picked up the phone. Inside, the warehouse buzzed in that early morning way, quiet, subdued, but alive with movement. No one had seen him enter yet. He took a moment by the break room door, watching. The crew was gathering near the loading docks, some stretching, some leaning against carts. Conversations were hushed. Eyes darted toward the supervisor's office, now empty. He stepped forward, every head turned. A few froze mid-motion. Others straightened instinctively, unsure of what to do. Landon raised a hand. Morning, he said. Let me keep this short. I was here the last 2 days working alongside you, under a different name. Let's just say I saw what I needed to see. No one spoke. I know trust isn't rebuilt in a day. I don't expect anyone to pretend yesterday didn't happen. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Zach stood off to the side, arms crossed, unreadable. Landon continued. We're not bringing in a temp supervisor. I'll be stepping into the role myself until we hire someone who actually understands what leadership looks like. In the meantime, we've got work to do. He paused, then added, and before we do anything else, I want to hear from each of you, one by one, today. He walked to an empty table, pulled a folding chair from the wall, and sat. We'll rotate breaks, 5 minutes per person. No filters, no consequences, just talk. People looked at each other, unsure. He pointed to a woman near the conveyor line. You? What's your name? She blinked. Marisol. Marisol, let's talk. She hesitated, then came over. They sat face to face while the others returned to their stations. The line kept moving, but slower. Landon wasn't concerned with speed for once. Marisol glanced around, then leaned in. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, she said. You're not, Landon replied. Just tell me what it's been like. She exhaled, then spoke. I used to work at the East Peoria warehouse. When I transferred here, it felt like walking into a storm. Kenny didn't train anyone. I asked him once if we could get ergonomic mats by the packing station. My knees swell up after long shifts. He laughed and said I should have picked a job with chairs. Did you report that? I did. I got a call from HR, but nothing changed. After that, he started giving me the worst shifts. Fridays, nights, always solo on rap duty. Landon nodded. That ends now. Today we order those mats, and I'll personally review the shift assignments. She blinked, caught off guard. You're serious? I wouldn't have shown up if I wasn't. Next came Marcus. Then a man named Darren, who had transferred from a warehouse that had closed the previous year. Each had stories not just of unfair treatment, but of being ignored when they tried to speak up. One by one, the picture sharpened. Kenny hadn't just been toxic, he'd created an environment where silence was safer than honesty. By the time Zach sat down, the midday sun was already casting long shadows across the open dock. Landon didn't say anything at first. He waited. Zach looked down at the floor. I don't really know what to say, he muttered. You've already seen most of it. I want to hear it anyway. Zach looked up, hesitant. My limp, that's from an old injury, construction accident. I disclosed it during onboarding. Wasn't supposed to be a problem. Did Kenny ever offer accommodations? Zach laughed once, but there was no humor in it. He said if I needed special treatment, I should have applied somewhere else. Told me to stop milking it. I started doubling up on Advil just to get through the day. Landon's jaw tightened. That's a safety violation. Full stop. From now on, we're following state guidelines on medical accommodations. I'll make sure HR contacts you directly. Zach studied him a moment, then leaned forward slightly. Why'd you come here yourself? You could have sent someone, hired a consultant, never even shown your face. Because I was wrong, Landon said quietly. I thought clean reports meant good leadership. I assumed the systems worked. That was my mistake. Zach didn't respond right away. Then, well, you saw it now. I did. They sat in silence for a few beats before Zach stood. Guess I should get back to the line. One more thing, Landon said, standing too. I want your input on the new floor lead position. We're reopening it this time for real. You've got the experience. I've seen it myself. Zach blinked. You're offering me the role? I'm asking if you're interested. Zach folded his arms. I'd need time to train properly. And I'm not taking it if it's just for show. It's not. And you'll be paid for every hour you spend training. Zach nodded once. Then yeah, I'm interested. By late afternoon, Landon had spoken with every worker on shift. He had 2 full pages of notes in his pocket. Equipment shortages, outdated software. One of the forklifts hadn't passed inspection in over a year. The team had found workarounds to keep the place running, but it was duct tape over a cracked engine. At the end of the day, he gathered everyone again. No speeches, he said. Just this, we're not fixing everything overnight, but we're starting now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded list. These are the first steps. New scanners are already ordered. The safety audit will be redone by a third party, and no more shift penalties for speaking up. A few people looked at each other, surprised. That's not a favor, Landon added. That's the baseline. As the team started to disperse, a tall woman approached him, someone who hadn't spoken much during the day. You said no consequences for honesty, she said. I did. I've seen warehouse managers come and go. They all make promises, but after a month, it goes back to how it was. Landon met her eyes. Then hold me to it. If things slide, you come straight to me. No chain of command. She hesitated, then gave a short nod and walked away. Landon stayed behind, watching the crew start their closing tasks. The lines moved smoother now, not because the work had changed, but because the weight had. As he turned to leave, Zach passed by, lifting a box onto the roller table with practiced ease. Still think this place is worth saving? He asked over his shoulder. Landon paused. Especially now, he said, because if we don't fix it, who will? Zach gave a quiet chuckle and kept moving. Landon stepped outside, the warehouse doors closing behind him. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The following weeks weren't smooth. They weren't meant to be. Landon didn't expect gratitude, only honesty, and he got plenty of that. The Joliet warehouse was still operating with short staff, still dealing with outdated tech, and still reeling from the months under Kenny's rule. But something essential had shifted. People spoke up now, and Landon listened. He returned every day for 2 full weeks, arriving before the first shift clocked in and staying through closing. He worked side by side with the crew during peak hours, then stayed back to review operations at night. He didn't pretend to be one of them anymore, but he didn't act like he was above them either. No corner office, no entourage, just a clipboard, a warehouse vest, and a list of things that needed fixing. The first order of business was the hiring freeze. It had come from corporate the previous quarter, aimed at trimming operational costs. But Landon overturned it. He approved 3 new hires for the Joliet floor and prioritized internal referrals. Darren, who had quietly managed 3 roles for the pay of 1, recommended his cousin someone with forklift certification and experience in cold storage. Marisol referred a neighbor who had just been laid off from a packaging plant. Both passed screening and were working within 10 days. It wasn't enough to fully cover the gaps, but it helped. For the first time in months, no one had to double a shift without notice. Landon also replaced the broken floor scanners, but refused to sign off on a top-down system overhaul just yet. He wanted feedback first. That meant gathering the crew after hours for a voluntary focus session. He paid them for their time. They met in the break room, exhausted but curious. Zach stood near the door, arms crossed loosely. He wasn't leading the meeting, but the others kept glancing his way before speaking. Marisol raised her hand. The new scanners are better, but they still disconnect when we move carts through aisle 3. Might be something with the signal range. Landon jotted it down. We'll map the dead zones. If the signal's weak, we boost it. Marcus added. The system still double counts when we scan multi-packs. Throws off inventory. Landon looked up. That's a setting issue. We'll get corporate IT involved. The changes didn't fix everything, but they made people feel heard, and that was a start. By the 3rd week, Landon had installed a temporary safety coordinator. Not a manager, just someone to walk the floor twice a day and flag anything that didn't meet code. He picked someone unexpected for the role, the young woman with the ponytail who had nearly dropped a box during his undercover shift. Her name was Jamie. She was quiet, but she noticed things others didn't. Worn brake pads on a pallet jack, a loose bolt on the roller table. She logged everything. When Landon reviewed her report, he handed it back without corrections. You want to keep doing this long term? He asked one night as she finished her rounds. I didn't think I was good at it, she said, but I kind of like noticing things no one else sees. Then we'll train you up. Safety lead is a paid title. If you're interested, it's yours. She nodded, surprised but not overwhelmed. Yeah, I'd like that. The real test came when HR launched a formal investigation into Kenny's conduct. Landon had made it clear this wasn't about protecting the company. It was about protecting the people who made the company run. Each crew member was interviewed separately. Landon wasn't allowed to be present, but he stayed nearby, offering support without pressure. 2 days into the audit, word came back. 3 separate complaints had been filed against Kenny in the past year. All were closed without follow-up. One involved a racial slur directed at Marcus. Another detailed a pattern of assigning physically strenuous tasks to employees with visible injuries. The third was a written complaint from a former employee who alleged Kenny mocked her accent during training and refused to assign her to teams with fast workers. Landon called a meeting with corporate's HR director and legal counsel that same afternoon. I don't want a quiet termination in his file, he said. I want a formal note of cause, gross misconduct, discriminatory behavior. I want it documented so he can't move sideways into another leadership job. The legal rep warned him of pushback. Landon didn't flinch. We're not protecting a man who mocked someone's limp and assigned labor by skin color. If that costs us a lawsuit, I'll pay it, but I won't pay in silence. The report was amended. Kenny's termination was updated to reflect cause. His severance was revoked. When word got out across the floor, no one cheered. But the silence this time meant something different. It meant relief. Zach approached Landon later that evening after the others had left. You didn't have to go that far, he said quietly. Yes, I did. Zach studied him a moment. You're not what I expected. I'm not here to be expected, Landon replied. I'm here to make sure no one like him gets to wear our logo again. By the end of the month, Zach was officially floor lead. He didn't change overnight. He was still cautious with authority, still hesitant to delegate. But he led with clarity. When a newer employee accidentally mislabeled a shipment, he didn't snap. He walked them through the fix, then stayed late to help re-sort the pallet. Jamie's safety reports had reduced minor injuries by half. She'd already flagged 2 potential trip hazards that were corrected before inspection. Marisol got her ergonomic mats. She stayed late one Friday to help train the new hires without being asked. And Marcus? He started arriving 10 minutes early each shift, not out of fear, out of pride. Landon stepped away from daily operations by the 5th week, but not completely. He set up bi-weekly video calls with the Joliet crew, not through HR, but directly. Every session was closed loop. No managers, no lawyers, just people talking to each other. He also added a rotating seat on the company's internal advisory board. One warehouse worker would serve for 6 months, paid. They'd sit in on high-level calls and voice the ground floor perspective. Zach was nominated first. He declined. "Give it to Jamie," he said. "She sees more than I do most days." Jamie accepted. Before Landon left Joliet for good, he gathered the team in the break room one final time. No speech, just an open floor. A new hire raised her hand. "Is it always like this at your other warehouses?" Landon shook his head. "It isn't, but it will be." He turned to the crew, voice steady. "You shouldn't need me to show up in disguise for things to get better. That's on me. I lost sight of what this company really is. Not a fleet, not a brand, people, you." No one applauded. That wasn't their style. But when he walked out, passing the loading dock where boxes moved in steady rhythm, he saw something different. No chaos, no fear. Just work done right, done together, and done with dignity. And for the first time in a long time, Landon Hale didn't feel like an owner watching from above. He felt like someone finally standing where he belonged,